Kundalini is the cosmic power in the individual body. It is she who, when awakened, opens the gates to divine realization, revealing mysteries that transcend ordinary human understanding. Gopi Krishna. Imagine a primordial force sleeping at the base of your spine. An energy so powerful that, when awakened, can completely transform your consciousness, connecting you directly with the cosmos. This is not mystical fantasy, but the description of a real experience documented by sages and yogis across millennia. Kundalini represents the deepest secret of Eastern spirituality, an energy that has remained hidden in Vedic and Tantric scriptures for over 5,000 years. Described as a serpent coiled 3.5 times at the base of the spine, this force lies dormant in most human beings, waiting for the right moment to awaken. In the ancient traditions of India, particularly in Tantric texts and the Vedas, we find the earliest references to this divine energy. The sages of that time understood something that modern science is only beginning to glimpse. The human body contains a complex energetic system with power centers, the chakras, that can be activated to elevate consciousness to extraordinary states. The word Kundalini derives from the Sanskrit kundal, meaning coiled. Like a sleeping serpent, it rests in the root chakra, Muladhara, located at the base of the spine. When awakened, this serpentine energy ascends through the Sushumna, the central energy channel that runs parallel to the spine, activating each of the 7 major chakras until reaching the Sahasrara, the crown chakra, at the top of the head. What makes this energy so special? Why have entire civilizations dedicated complex spiritual practices to awakening it? The answer lies in the profound transformation it brings. We're not talking about a fleeting mystical experience, but a fundamental change in the energetic structure and consciousness of the human being. In 1970, Gopi Krishna published Kundalini, The Evolutionary Energy in Man, an autobiographical account that revolutionized Western understanding of this phenomenon. Krishna wasn't a monk isolated in a Himalayan cave, but an ordinary man who, through persistent meditation, experienced a spontaneous and overwhelming awakening of this energy. His account describes intense sensations of heat rising up the spine, extraordinary visions, and altered states of consciousness that initially left him disoriented. "I felt as if a stream of liquid light was ascending through my spine," he wrote, detailing an experience that would completely transform his life and lead him to decades of study on this phenomenon. What makes Gopi Krishna's account so valuable is his approach, both experiential and intellectual. He not only experienced the awakening of Kundalini, but dedicated the rest of his life to scientifically understanding this process, proposing that Kundalini represents the next step in human evolution, a biological force programmed to elevate our species to a new level of consciousness. But beware, awakening Kundalini is not a process for amateurs or the unprepared curious. What are the true risks of awakening this energy without proper preparation? And why have so many spiritual masters kept this knowledge secret for so long? Gopi Krishna's experience with Kundalini awakening began unexpectedly one December morning, after years of disciplined meditation. What he didn't know was that he was about to experience something that would forever change his understanding of reality. Suddenly, with a roar like that of a waterfall, I felt a stream of liquid light entering my brain through the spinal cord, wrote Krishna. This initial experience was so intense that he believed he was dying. For months, he suffered extreme physical symptoms, intense heat, insomnia, disturbing visions, and sensations of electrical energy coursing through his body. What makes his account so valuable is that Krishna meticulously documented both the ecstatic and challenging aspects of this process. He discovered that Kundalini awakening can be dangerous, when it occurs without proper guidance or physical and psychological preparation. Kundalini Yoga, systematized for the West by Yogi Bhajan in the 1960s, offers a more gradual and safe path to this awakening. This practice combines specific physical postures, breathing techniques called pranayama, mantras, and meditation to prepare the body and mind for the ascension of this powerful energy. Pranayama, particularly breath of fire and alternate nostril breathing, serves as one of the most effective methods for stimulating Kundalini. These techniques increase vital energy in the body, purify the energy channels, and create the internal environment necessary for a safe awakening. Swami Sivananda, in his book Kundalini Yoga, published in 1962, offers detailed instructions on these practices, emphasizing the importance of prior purification of the nadis, the subtle energy channels. He teaches that before awakening Kundalini, the practitioner must develop qualities such as mental purity, control of the senses, and emotional stability. The awakening process typically follows a recognizable pattern. First, the practitioner may feel tingling or heat at the base of the spine. With continued practice, these sensations intensify, possibly manifesting as waves of energy rising up the spine. Many describe internal sounds, visions of lights and colors, and expanded states of consciousness. As the energy ascends, it activates each chakra, releasing physical, emotional, and psychological blockages associated with these centers. The root chakra, Muladhara, relates to our security and survival. Svadhisthana, in the pelvic region, governs our creativity and sexuality. Manipura, at the solar plexus, connects with our personal power and self-confidence. When Kundalini reaches Anahata, the heart chakra, many experience a profound opening to universal love and compassion. At Vishuddha, the throat chakra, creative expression and authentic communication flourish. Ajna, the third eye, awakens intuition and spiritual perception. Finally, when the energy reaches Sahasrara, the crown chakra, what ancient texts describe as the union of Shiva and Shakti, occurs. Individual consciousness merges with universal consciousness, resulting in states of samadhi or enlightenment. Arthur Avalon, the pseudonym of Sir John Woodroffe, a British judge and tantric scholar, published The Serpent Power in 1919, a commented translation of ancient tantric texts such as the Sat Chakra Nirupana. This pioneering work introduced to the West detailed concepts of chakras and Kundalini, revealing a system of subtle anatomy that had remained hidden for centuries. But what really happens in the body during this process? Could there be a scientific basis for these mystical experiences described in ancient texts? Modern science is beginning to investigate what ancient yogis understood intuitively. Contemporary researchers are studying the neurological, biochemical, and electromagnetic changes that occur during practices that stimulate Kundalini, discovering fascinating patterns that validate many ancient descriptions. When Gopi Krishna spoke of liquid light rising up the spine, he might have been describing actual changes in the body's bioelectric fields. Recent studies detect significant changes in brain electrical activity during deep meditative states, with distinct patterns of gamma waves associated with elevated states of consciousness. Neuroscience identifies that practices like Kundalini Yoga activate the parasympathetic nervous system, inducing states of deep relaxation while simultaneously stimulating specific brain areas associated with expanded consciousness. The result is a paradoxical state of relaxed alertness that facilitates transcendent experiences. From a physiological perspective, the ascension of Kundalini can be partially explained by the activation of the pineal gland, considered by many traditions as the physical correlate of the third eye. This gland produces melatonin and endogenous DMT, substances associated with visionary states and mystical experiences. The chakras, in turn, roughly correspond to important nerve plexuses along the spine. The root chakra relates to the sacral plexus, the navel chakra to the solar plexus, the heart chakra to the cardiac plexus, and so on. This correspondence suggests that ancient yogis mapped the nervous system through direct meditative experience, without modern instruments. Gopi Krishna proposed a revolutionary theory. Kundalini represents an evolutionary biological mechanism encoded in our nervous system, designed to elevate human consciousness to new heights. He suggested that many geniuses throughout history experienced partial awakenings of this energy, resulting in their extraordinary capabilities. Kundalini is the creative force responsible for the evolution of human consciousness, wrote Krishna. When fully awakened, it can transform the human brain, activating dormant areas and expanding our mental capabilities beyond current limits. This vision finds surprising parallels in recent discoveries about neuroplasticity and the unexplored potential of the human brain. We now know that consistent meditative practices can literally reshape the brain, increasing gray matter density in areas associated with attention, compassion, and self-awareness. Beyond neurological changes, Kundalini awakening frequently triggers profound transformations in personality and perception. Many report a temporary dissolution of the ego, followed by a reconstruction of identity on more integrated and harmonious foundations. This process of psychological death and rebirth finds parallels in the studies of psychiatrist Carl Jung, who recognized Kundalini as an archetypal symbol of the individuation process, the psychological journey toward wholeness. Jung corresponded with Gopi Krishna and considered the Kundalini phenomenon a manifestation of the collective unconscious, emerging into individual consciousness. Ancient tantric texts, such as those translated by Arthur Avalon in The Serpent Power, describe with surprising precision the altered states of consciousness associated with Kundalini's ascension through the chakras. These texts map an inner territory that neuroscience is only beginning to explore. But if Kundalini truly represents our next evolutionary step, why does this energy remain dormant in most people? What would be the greater purpose of this spiritual mechanism encoded in our biology? The Kundalini journey isn't all light and ecstasy. As Gopi Krishna painfully discovered, premature or unbalanced awakening of this energy can trigger intense physical, psychological, and spiritual crises. For years after his initial awakening, he suffered from chronic insomnia, sensations of unbearable heat, digestive disturbances, and states of consciousness so altered that they made normal functioning impossible. I felt as if I was being consumed by an internal fire that no one could see, wrote Krishna, describing periods when he believed he was on the verge of death or madness. Only gradually, through adjustments in his diet, lifestyle, and spiritual practices, did he manage to stabilize and integrate this powerful energy. Ancient yogic literature recognizes these risks. Texts like the Hatha Yoga Pradipika warn that the practitioner must purify the nadis and strengthen the body before awakening Kundalini. Without this preparation, the energy may encounter blockages or deviate into secondary channels, manifesting as physical or psychological disturbances. The phenomenon known as spiritual emergency, a term coined by psychiatrists Stanislav and Christina Grof, describes psychological crises triggered by intense spiritual experiences, including Kundalini awakening. Symptoms may include disturbing visions, overwhelming energy sensations, perceptual alterations, and extreme emotional states. Unfortunately, Western medicine often misdiagnoses these experiences as psychoses or neurological disorders, treating with medication what essentially represents a profound spiritual transformation. This misunderstanding can further complicate the integration process. Swami Sivananda warned, "Kundalini is a goddess. She must be approached with reverence and proper preparation." He recommended prior purification through practices such as asanas, pranayama, meditation, and observance of ethical principles like yama and niyama. Specific risks include unbalanced activation of the chakras. If the energy rises rapidly without purifying each center, it may manifest as intensification of psychological issues associated with the chakras traversed. For example, partial activation of the Manipura chakra may intensify issues of power, control, and anger. Another danger is what tantric texts call prana vayu vikriti, disorders of vital energy flow. When Kundalini awakens but encounters blockages, energy may accumulate in certain areas, causing pain, involuntary muscle spasms, or sensations of intense pressure. Psychologically, the ego may not be prepared for the temporary dissolution that often accompanies advanced Kundalini experiences. This collapse of habitual psychic structures can be terrifying when it occurs without proper context or guidance. Gopi Krishna eventually overcame his difficulties and reached a state of extraordinary balance and clarity, but he emphasized that his path would have been much less traumatic with proper guidance. "I was navigating unknown seas without map or compass," he wrote, highlighting the importance of an experienced guide. Eastern traditions have always emphasized the need for a qualified guru to supervise Kundalini awakening. The guru not only transmits techniques, but can recognize signs of imbalance and adjust practices as needed for each individual. Yogi Bhajan, when introducing Kundalini Yoga to the West, structured the practices in carefully designed sequences called kriyas, which systematically work to prepare the body and mind before more intensely stimulating the energy. This gradual system minimizes the risks of an unbalanced awakening. Given these potential dangers, why would anyone deliberately seek to awaken this energy? What benefits justify these risks? And how can we navigate this path safely in the modern era? When Kundalini awakens in a balanced way and is properly integrated, it triggers a transformation so profound that many traditions compare it to an alchemical process. The transmutation of the lead of ordinary consciousness into the gold of enlightenment. The benefits of this transformation manifest at all levels of being. Physically, many experience increased vitality, strengthened immune system, and harmonization of bodily functions. Kundalini energy activates self-healing mechanisms, releasing energetic blockages that often underlie chronic diseases. Emotionally, a deep purification occurs. Old traumas, limiting emotional patterns, and negative conditioning are brought to consciousness and gradually dissolved. This process may initially intensify repressed emotions, but eventually leads to extraordinary emotional stability, characterized by equanimity in the face of life's ups and downs. Mentally, practitioners report increased cognitive clarity, sharpened intuition, and access to elevated creative states. Thinking becomes more integrated, transcending the habitual fragmentation of the mind. Many experience what Buddhists call beginner's mind, a quality of freshness and receptivity that perceives each moment as new. Spiritually, Kundalini awakening can lead to profound mystical experiences, sensations of unity with the cosmos, direct perception of the interconnection of all things, states of indescribable ecstasy, and intuitive understandings about the nature of reality. These are not mere passing experiences, but lasting transformations in the structure of consciousness. Gopi Krishna described his final condition as a state of permanent cosmic consciousness. "I live in two worlds simultaneously," he wrote, "the phenomenal world of the senses and a transcendent world of light and harmony that interpenetrates and sustains the first." This alchemical transformation also manifests in interpersonal relationships. As Kundalini ascends through the chakras, especially Anahata, a profound capacity for unconditional love and compassion develops. Relationships become less based on need and more on authentic generosity. Complete Kundalini awakening often triggers what Eastern traditions call siddhis, extraordinary capabilities such as clairvoyance, telepathy, energy healing, and other phenomena considered paranormal by conventional science. Yogic texts warn against attachment to these abilities, considering them byproducts of the spiritual journey, not its goal. Swami Sivananda emphasized that the true purpose of Kundalini awakening is spiritual liberation, moksha or samadhi, not the acquisition of powers. The siddhis are flowers on the path, he wrote. Admire them briefly, but do not deviate to pick them. Integrating Kundalini into everyday life represents the most challenging and significant aspect of this journey. It's not about escaping the world, but bringing the light of expanded consciousness to every aspect of mundane existence. Yogi Bhajan taught that the true yogi is not one who meditates perfectly in an isolated cave, but one who maintains equanimity and presence while navigating the challenges of family, professional, and social life. "We have not come to chew water," he would say in one of his characteristic expressions. "We have come to be lighthouses of consciousness in the world." This vision finds parallels in tantric traditions, which consider material reality not as an illusion to be transcended, but as a divine manifestation to be consciously embraced. The advanced practitioner sees the sacred in the ordinary, experiencing each moment as an expression of cosmic consciousness. But how can this ancient spiritual science be applied in modern life? And what would be its relevance to the global challenges we face in the 21st century? We are living in an era of unprecedented transformation. Ecological, social, political, and existential crises converge, signaling that old paradigms are disintegrating. In this context, Kundalini awakening emerges not just as an individual journey of transformation, but as an evolutionary call for humanity. Gopi Krishna proposed a revolutionary vision. Kundalini represents the biological mechanism through which human evolution will continue, no longer primarily through physical changes, but through the expansion of consciousness. The next stage in human evolution, he wrote, will be marked by the development of mental and spiritual faculties currently latent in most people. This perspective resonates with the concept of noosphere proposed by paleontologist and philosopher Teilhard de Chardin. The idea that evolution is creating a layer of collective consciousness around the planet. The awakening of Kundalini in a growing number of individuals could represent the mechanism by which this planetary transformation occurs. Interestingly, many indigenous traditions around the world have prophesied an era of global awakening. The Hopi speak of the emergence of a new humanity after a period of purification. The Maya described cosmic cycles culminating in a transformation of consciousness. These converging visions suggest an intercultural recognition of this evolutionary potential encoded in our biology. At the practical level, how can we consciously participate in this evolutionary process? The answer begins with individual practices that prepare the body and mind for the safe and balanced awakening of Kundalini. Kundalini Yoga offers a comprehensive system for this purpose. Specific kriyas work to strengthen the nervous system, balance the glandular system, and purify the energy channels. Pranayama techniques increase vital energy and expand respiratory capacity. Directed meditations calm the mind and develop sustained concentration. Equally important is emotional and psychological purification. Working consciously with limiting patterns, unresolved traumas, and negative conditioning creates the internal space necessary for the harmonious ascension of Kundalini energy. Contemporary therapies can complement traditional practices in this aspect. Proper guidance remains crucial. Although we live in an era of abundant information, The experiential wisdom of a qualified guide cannot be replaced by books or videos. Seeking a teacher who has integrated their own Kundalini awakening provides not only technical instruction, but also the energetic field that catalyzes the process. Community also plays a vital role. Practicing in groups creates an amplified energy field that supports individual awakening. Sharing experiences with others on the path provides validation and perspective during the inevitable challenges of the process. Finally, selfless service, seva, represents an essential aspect of this journey. Using expanded energy and consciousness to benefit others prevents what yogic texts call spiritual inflation, the subtle strengthening of the ego that can occur with intense spiritual experiences. Gopi Krishna emphasized that Kundalini awakening is not an end in itself, but the means for a broader transformation of human society. He envisioned a future civilization based on values such as compassion, sustainability, and cooperation, emerging naturally from a humanity with awakened Kundalini. This vision offers hope in challenging times. Perhaps the crises we face represent the birth pangs of a new consciousness emerging. The intense symptoms that often accompany Kundalini awakening on a collective scale. What secret will you take from this exploration of Kundalini? Perhaps the understanding that within you rests a transformative force of unlimited potential. Or perhaps the recognition that your own inexplicable spiritual experiences may be part of a larger evolutionary process. Share in the comments. Have you experienced sensations that might indicate the initial awakening of Kundalini? What practices have you found most effective for cultivating your spiritual energy? The sacred serpent, sleeping at the base of your spine, waits patiently. The transformative fire is available to all who prepare properly and approach with reverence. The question is not whether you will awaken this energy, but when and how you will consciously participate in this extraordinary evolutionary journey.